Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the podcast or the channel if you're watching. So I've just completed my first ever HYROX today. So seeing as it's fresh in my mind, I essentially want to go through a debrief of the HYROX Doubles which I did in Sharjah. So first of all, if you're wondering what is HYROX, so HYROX is a race, okay, it's a fitness race. Think of it almost like a hybrid race between like CrossFit, some element of endurance and also an element of strength there. So for anyone who does not know, HYROX is where you essentially do 8 1 kilometer runs, and after each 1 kilometer run you do one functional station. So the functional stations are as follows. You've got, the first one is a 1,000 meter skier, so skier is like upper body cardio. The second station is a sled push, so a 50 meter sled push. For men it is going to be 152 kilos, for women it's going to be 102 kilos, and then for pro it's going to be 202 kilos. The third station then is going to be a sled pull, okay, so you're literally pulling a sled with a rope. Again, it's 50 meters in distance. For women the weight is 78 kg, for men the weight is 103 kg, and then for men's pro the weight is 152 kg. Station number 4, probably the one I found the hardest today, was the burpee broad jump. So it's an 80 meter burpee broad jump. That's just done with your body weight. Station number 5 is a 1,000 meter row, okay? It's just a row machine, so a bit of upper body, lower body cardio there. Station number 6, probably the easiest, was a kettlebell farmer's carry. So you literally hold 2 kettlebells in your arm. You run around 2 laps it was, and 200 meters in total. The weight for women's is 16 kilo kettlebells, so 2 16 kilo kettlebells in either hand. The weight for men is 24 kg in either hand, and then the weight for men's pro is 32 kg in either hand, okay? Station number 7, second last station, is sandbag lunges. So for women I believe the weight is 10 kg, for men the weight is 20 kg, for men's pro the weight is 30 kg, okay? And then the final station is 100 wall balls. So for women the weight is 4 kg, for men the weight is for the wall ball 6 kg, and then for men's pro the weight is 8 kg. Now the wall ball, just for context, for women you have to hit a 9-foot target, for men you have to hit a 10-foot target, okay? So that is what essentially HYROX is. As I said, after each of the 8 functional stations you do a run. So it's 8 kilometers in total running, more like 9 kilometers though by the time you move in and out of zones, along with those 8 functional stations, okay? HYROX is a race, okay? You can get penalized, and I'll go through some of the rules in a moment. So why did I decide to do HYROX? So essentially today I did a HYROX Doubles. Honestly, why did I decide? It's like the universe is listening. I set my goal for the second quarter of the year. One thing I said I'd like to experience was a HYROX. One of my mates is doing it, and he was doing a doubles with somebody else, but the guy he was doing it with pulled out. So I literally took this on 10 days notice. So maybe the universe is listening and just gave me a call and that, you know what, Ado, now is the time for you and you should do the HYROX. So that's really why I did it. But I really like just being functionally fit and physically fit, and like being gym fit too. In the past I would have made a mistake of just doing too much strength work, but then I barely struggled to run a kilometer. And I do believe there's a difference between looking fit and actually being fit. So the benefit of me just doing more running is, first of all, mentally I feel so much better, and then I love lifting on top of that. And I feel that I really enjoy my training when I'm not just doing one thing, not just doing, you know, pump work, bodybuilding work, whatever you want to call it. I love combining both running and lifting, okay? Now, how did I train for it? Well, first of all, look, what I was doing the last 10 days is not a HYROX training plan, nor, by the way, am I claiming to be a HYROX expert because I've just done one. I'm just speaking about my experience. So essentially my training up until I got the call, the good news is, look, you're able to do a HYROX if you're able to run, really. Like 60% of the race is all about your running. If you're really strong, you can't really out-strength yourself into a HYROX. Like, sure, you could do it, but your time's probably not going to be optimal, I would say. But if you're able to run 10k quite comfortably, you're doing a lot of zone 2 work, you could easily prepare yourself for a HYROX if you have a decent base of strength in a few weeks, okay? So how I would train for it versus how I did are 2 completely different things. How I did train for it, so I was running, okay, bear in mind, over the last 3 months, I'd say on average 40 to 50 kilometers a week. So perfect. Like, I already had the aerobic base there, the running. So the running I actually found quite easy. Okay. Now, if I was doing it again, here's how I would actually do it. So I would first of all do 3 kinds of runs, which I'm more or less kind of doing. The first kind of run, the most important one, is just your zone 2 cardio, okay? That is where you're running at a conversational pace. Ideally, you're able to hold a conversation with someone beside you, and I would do that at least once a week for upwards of 45 to even an hour and 15 minutes, because HYROX, like, depending on the time you're aiming for, that's going to be the length of the event itself. Like a minimum 45 minutes though, but ideally an hour or longer, okay? The second kind of run that I would do some form of compromised running. So when I was always doing my running, my legs were quite fresh. Now, one thing about HYROX is that when you're doing, we'll say, a sled push, or you're doing walking lunges and you're going straight into a run again, okay, your legs can get very heavy very, very quickly, okay, because you're doing both, you're running and compromised legs. So I would do some form of compromised running where maybe you do a leg session, and then at the end of your leg session, you do a run, you do some lunges, you do a run, you do some more leg work, something like that will just combine both there. Do it at the end though, where your legs are fatigued, okay, because that's going to mimic what you're going to feel like, or how you're going to feel in race day. The third kind of run that I would do, because this is a race, is speed work, okay? If you have the capacity to run faster, you're going to find the zone 2 work easier, and you're also going to be able to push yourself, you know, coming off those last few laps there when you know you've only got maybe a kilometer or 2 station to go, okay? So that's how I would train for it. And then with the HYROX stations, what I would do, so this off the assumption that you want to combine HYROX with like just actually being functionally fit. I would do 2 running sessions a week and then 1 HYROX specific. Then I would do 2 or 3 strength sessions as well on top of that to make sure you maintain your strength. If you're really all out in HYROX, you want to become a pro, you'd obviously do more. I'd probably do like, you know, 2 to 3 HYROX a week and 2 to 3 runs a week. But the most important thing is without a doubt the running. So make sure you've got a running base before you do it. And then if you want to combine running with lifting, what I would do is if you can train say 5 times a week, 6 times a week, I would do something like 2 running sessions, 1 HYROX session, and then 2 or 3 lifts as well, like 2 or 3 full body lifts, so you're maintaining your strength, okay? Now, next thing I want to speak about is, so that's how I would train for it. Now, ironically enough, I finished my first HYROX today, a couple hours ago, and I signed up for the men's single, okay? So today, by the way, was a HYROX double. Now, the good thing about a HYROX double, if you haven't done a HYROX before, I'd highly recommend you do it with a doubles initially. So the good thing about the doubles is you can essentially half the volume of the station. So for example, today with the skier, it's a 1,000 meter total skier, but my partner and I, Harry, he did 500 meters, so we did 4 sets of 250 meters each, okay? Same with like something like the sled push, it's 50 meters, but one length is like 12 and a half. So I did one length, he did one length, back and back. So it's like you can half the distance there, which makes it much easier, at least at an entry level. Now, the next one that I'm going to be doing on my own, I'm essentially going to be doing everything myself, so it will be much harder. So for example, I'm going to be doing 80 meters burpee broad jump, not just half it. I'm going to be doing 100 wall balls, not just 50. So it will certainly make it that bit harder. So I would recommend, if you are considering entering a HYROX, I would do a doubles initially, okay? Just so you get a bit of skin in the game, you know exactly what it's about, and then that will give you more bandwidth and leeway to decide whether you want to transition to a single if you're up for a challenge. So I'm going to be doing this now. It's 12 weeks away, so I'll really step up my training and actually get a bit of time to properly train for it. So that is something that I'm excited about, okay? But that was essentially, that's what HYROX is, first of all. Next thing I want to speak about is, so race day itself. Just some race day tips. So first of all is that one thing that I absolutely nailed, okay, was my pre-HYROX carb load. Absolutely perfect. Like today, I felt really good. I felt super energized. I didn't spit over. I had the perfect amount of carbohydrates, okay? So just for context, I did a half marathon 2 months ago and I had 1,500 grams of carbohydrates over 2 days. And the second day I took too many carbohydrates on and I actually felt a bit bloated the morning of the race. And this is what you call in bodybuilding where it's spit over. So if you look at bodybuilding athletes compete on stage, they do carb loads 2 days out beforehand. But what they often say you want to avoid in bodybuilding is where you spill over, where you actually consume too many carbohydrates to your body's capacity to store, and that can just get stored as excess body fat. Now that kind of happened to me with the half marathon that I did 2 months ago, but for this HYROX it was absolutely bang on. Okay, so the recommended daily amount of carbohydrates to intake for a carb load, there's a big range there, but it's anywhere from 6 all the way up to 12 grams of carbohydrates per kilo of body weight. So I weighed in today about 81 odd kilos, so let's just round it to 80 kilos, and I had 600 grams of carbohydrates on Thursday and Friday, and then the race day was Saturday today, okay? So I had 600 grams, so 1,200 in total. And this morning I just felt amazing. I probably another 120 grams in my breakfast because I had some cream of rice, I had some banana, some rice cake, some honey there as well, and absolutely perfect. I felt really good. But what I would recommend first of all with HYROX is make sure you carb load, okay? HYROX is one of these things where your heart rate's going to be going from the start, all right? Because when you're when you're running, okay, you're doing your zone 2, your heart rate's relatively steady. You want to, maybe 60 or 70%. But with HYROX, especially after some of the stations, you're doing burpee broad jumps, your heart rate's going to be really elevated, and your body's prime source of fuel it's going to be using for the full hour, the hour and 15 or 20, whatever you're doing it in, it's going to be carbohydrates. So I would do a carb load at least 48 hours beforehand. For me, I just use it for my carb load, got it spot on. I mostly just had meals that I was accustomed to. I know a lot of people that like to have bagels and breads and pastas, and they go for donuts and all that. For me, that doesn't sit well. If I had that, I'd be blown up today. I'd have a sick stomach. So my carb load was essentially I had oats, because chocolate protein oats, I love them. Cream of rice, which is just rice flour bread, my favorite carbohydrate. Had it again this morning as my pre-workout meal. Felt absolutely amazing. Cream of rice, check it out if you haven't tried it before. Absolutely phenomenal, okay? I had that with just a scoop of protein powder in it. And then just for the rest of the meal, so I recommend for a carb load that you do a low fiber carb load. So I would not have too many grams of oats, okay? At 100 grams, that was more than enough. But I didn't really have any potatoes, sweet potato, white potato, because they're fantastic carbohydrate sources, but they also contain quite a lot of fiber. And because fiber is quite hard to digest and it takes up a lot of space in your stomach, that's actually does not work in your favor when it comes to a carb load. So for the last 2 days, okay, I didn't really have any vegetables, very minimal vegetables, and then low fiber, low GI carbohydrates. So it's essentially oats, which do contain fiber, just because I love them, I had to include them. And then just cream of rice, rice cakes, and just white rice, simple white rice, perfect, easy to digest, very, very little fiber there, and no issues at all. Race day in itself, so this morning, so first of all, what I'd recommend is whatever time your race is at, make sure you get there at least 2 hours beforehand. So if you're, for example, today we were racing at 8, and I didn't realise, but I was there like 6:30, 6:30 a.m, and honestly the queue was freaking huge. Now I was lucky that my HYROX partner Harry was there before me, okay, but I actually didn't realise, because I only stepped in and didn't get an email saying, about like what time you should be there and so on. But knowing this for my second race, get there at least 2 hours beforehand, because you do not realise that you can be queuing. Today, like, one thing I would have liked them to organise better was just how many people were working there. Like, the queues are quite long. You'd be waiting anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, which is a bit annoying when you just want to get all the, get all your setup on board, make sure you have your race tag, make sure you have all that sorted, your registration. So that does take time, so please do account for that. Also as well, it's like going to bathrooms, like running events, races, there can be a bit of a queue for the toilet. So if you're hydrating, which I'm sure you would be, okay, just make sure you give yourself at least 2 hours, I would say, to arrive at the venue beforehand, all right? Now, race day itself then, so that was my breakfast, 100 grams of cream of rice, 1 banana, and then I drank 2.5 litres of water beforehand, or electrolytes beforehand. So I put in some Himalayan salt, I had some magnesium, I had some potassium there, absolutely perfect. Felt absolutely banging come the race itself, okay? Now, the race then, so we just did like a 15 to 20 minute warm up. I had a coffee beforehand too. Felt absolutely perfect. That was like almost a pre-workout. Supplement wise, I'd recommend, it's like, don't do anything crazy. I would recommend beta-alanine. I should have taken that today, but I didn't. But generally speaking, like, just make sure you're well hydrated beforehand. Get at least 2.5 litres of water into you. Get to the bathroom an hour before the race, and just have some simple and easy to digest carbohydrates on the day of the race itself. So the race then starts off with a run. Okay, so the first run, what I would say is just pace yourself when you're doing the race. So we didn't go all guns blazing. Now our time today, I'll let you know at the end, but just a backstory. So Harry, the guy that I did it with, unfortunately he hasn't ran in 8 or 9 weeks. So like, the fact that he even did it today, he probably shouldn't have, technically speaking. So I probably could have gone a bit faster, we could have gone a bit faster, but for the route for the HYROX doubles is that you have to enter one of the functional stations. You can't do it alone. You have to enter it with your race partner. So I found the running quite easy, but just what I would say, even though adrenaline will be high, it was pretty cool beforehand. They're like, you're into a tunnel, and they're doing a countdown, like you're going in 10, 9, and so on. So you're kind of going to be excited, and the temptation is to go all guns blazing and just sprint from the start. Honestly, do not do that. So I'd recommend you finish stronger than you start. So if you look at the first 8 stations there, the first 4 stations, the first half of the race, Okay, they're the hardest 4 in my opinion, bar the sandbag lunges. So the first 4, the skier, the sled push, the sled pull, the burpee broad jump, okay? If you go too hard in those first 4, you're going to fatigue quite quickly, I would say, if you don't have a decent base of fitness for the second 4. But after I did the burpee broad jump, that's when I said to Harry, look, now the race starts, because farmer's carry is quite easy. The row, when you kind of give your upper body or your legs a bit of a rest, okay, and you'll be able to grudge through the last 2, the sandbag lunges and the walking, the wall balls. But I'd recommend do not go all gun blazing there, especially with the run. Pace yourself, okay, practice this, and you'll get better at it, all right? Any other things? So what I found first thing worked well for me was that I knew the burpee broad jumps would be the hardest of all of the stations. So what I did after the burpee broad jump is I did have just one carbohydrate gel or one energy gel, okay? Honestly, mentally I felt really good, because that was halfway in the race. That's the hardest station for me that I found, and just having that bit of extra carbohydrates, 20 grams extra, I did feel it made a big difference, okay? But then in terms of the station, so I found, so if I were to rank them, I would say the most difficult one was without a doubt the burpee broad jump. That was the hardest. I'll actually start out with easiest. So I'd say the sandbag or the farmer's carry was the easiest, followed by, I would say, the row, followed by probably the sled pull, followed by I found the sled push okay. I found the skier a bit difficult, okay, so that was probably one of the more challenging ones for me. And then I found the wall balls, they can be quite challenging at the end, but definitely the hardest 2 without a doubt are the sandbag lunges, and the hardest for me, the burpee broad jump. Just because it's very difficult when you're like going down and going up and you're jumping and combining everything together. Just a quick heads up then on the rules before I just go into what I learned from doing it and would I do it again and giving you advice. So first of all, with some of the rules with the skier, okay, so you have to complete 1,000 meters, put up your hand once you've it done. For the sled push, so you have to push it the full length over and back. Now for the sled pull, where you're pulling with the rope, you're in like a narrowish lane, okay, so you cannot step out of your lane and like push your rope into someone else's lane. So you have to manage your rope, you cannot step out of the box. For the burpee broad jump, when you're doing a burpee broad jump, okay, just think about it. You're doing a burpee, your chest has to touch the floor. When you're doing a broad jump though, when you get up from the broad jump and get off the floor to jump again, you cannot push your hands a meter or 2 ahead of you and steal a few yards, okay? When you're getting up, your hands have to be down by your side or just in front of your feet. They can penalise you and ask you to move back 10 metres or add 5 or 10 minutes onto your time, so they can be quite strict in that. Just a heads up. With the row, just complete a 1,000 metre row, put your hand up then once you're done. Kettlebells, farmers carry are fine, so you can split them up, you can put the farmers or the kettlebell down. Now with the sandbag lunges, a few things here today. So first one is that when you're doing the lunges, the carpet today was it was like a cement floor. It was really tough. So it's like, don't jam your knees off the floor, number 1. It was actually quite sore. But secondly, your knee must touch the floor. Thirdly, okay, you have to fully extend when you're doing the lunges. So I was doing 3/4 rep lunges for my first 1 or 2, and the guy said to me, full extension, because when you think about it, if you do a 3/4 lunge where your bottom leg hits the floor, you go up 3/4 the way you go down again. Because you don't go up as far, you don't need to go down as far. Now, I was not aware that you need to do a full extension lunge. That's something you just need to be mindful of, because they can penalise you. And then for the wall ball, so you just have to make sure you squat to parallel. You can't just do a quarter squat and throw the ball up. You have to throw the ball, catch it, and squat to parallel, okay? Now, so that's how it went. That was my overall race experience. So first of all, so our time today it was okay. It was 1 hour and 7 minutes and I believe like 11 seconds, in that range there. I feel though, so honestly, if Harry's knee was okay and I had a bit more training done, he had a bit more training done, I don't doubt for 1 second we wouldn't be able to do a sub-hour. And I mean that, like I think 59 minutes be well within our reach there. So maybe that's something I can work towards moving forward. But if you're considering doing it, what I would say is, first of all, so sign up for it, say yes first, figure it out later. So I've already signed up for the next event, which is on in 3 months, and I'll figure out how to train properly. But you're not going to learn by just watching a YouTube video or listening to this podcast. You have to experience it for yourself. Now, what I love about HYROX is it's very accessible, okay? Unlike CrossFit where, there's a lot of technical lifts there and you can get injured quite easy doing like things like deadlifts for time when you're highly fatigued. With this, there's no technical lifts at all. Once you're able to run, okay, There's not a whole lot of skill set required to push or pull a sled, to do a skier, to do a walking lunge, to do a row or any of these lifts. They're all quite, none of them are very, very technical. It's just the combination of having a good baseline element of strength and particularly cardio and running base. Once you have that, you should be fine when it comes to HYROX, okay? So I'm going to be doing it again, and if you are considering doing one, I would say you would need, depending on your base, so this is very, very broadly speaking, but if you have a decent base, like you could really excel at HYROX, I would say, with 12 weeks of good, solid foundation training there. Like 12 weeks, in my opinion, is more than enough if you're already running and lifting. Now, if you're going from zero and you haven't ran or you haven't lifted and you want to do a decent time, you probably need to give yourself at least 16 weeks, if not more, okay? But just what I would say again, just to round it off is, first of all, amazing event. The atmosphere there is crazy. It was just really good vibes, very positive community, and everyone's very, very supportive. So a phenomenal event, and I must say hats off to HYROX. I was a bit, I saw a lot of people do it and I'm like, it just seems like it's a social media thing. But honestly, anything that gets people moving more, working out more, I'm all for. I would not recommend it as just doing your sole form of training as HYROX, because, it's not the most optimal for building strength. So if you want strength and aesthetics where you want to be, look good but also feel good, you would need to do obviously some structured progressive strength training program. But that is essentially my HYROX game plan. So if you're doing a HYROX, give yourself enough time, make sure you do a carb load, make sure you're aware of the rules beforehand, get down there early, get some reps in, get some practice in, and just enjoy the experience. Like, I really enjoyed that experience today. I was very present, and as I said, here's to the HYROX singles now, which will be a step up in a challenge, but nothing that I will not be prepared for. Okay, so that's all for this video or this podcast if you're listening. I hope you found it helpful. Again, this is a bit more off the cuff, and if you did, just please make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next episode.